When I first moved into my home within the picturesque confines of the local HOA community, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. The manicured lawns, the vibrant flower beds, and the sense of belonging created a perfect environment to start my new chapter. However, that sense of pride quickly morphed into confusion and dread when I learned that the HOA had declared my house abandoned. Ironically, I was very much living in it. It all began with a letter that arrived unexpectedly in my mailbox. The bold heading of Abandoned Property Notice sent chills down my spine. The harsh reality behind these stark words felt surreal. I had never considered my home to be anything but a sanctuary. That morning light filtering through the kitchen window, the cherished sounds of everyday life, it was all very real to me, even if it seemed absurd to the HOA. How could this have happened? I routinely maintained my property, paid my dues promptly, and engaged with neighbors during community events. Yet, unnoticed by me, perhaps one or two observers had misconstrued my temporary absence due to personal circumstances as abandonment. Somewhere along the way, I became an elusive phantom in my own home, a concept difficult to grasp when your house is filled with memories and life. Navigating this shocking predicament would require unraveling assumptions and clarifying misconceptions, not just for myself, but for those who may share similar experiences trapped within the web of HOA rules and regulations. To navigate the complexities of my situation, I knew it was essential to understand the guidelines set forth by the Homeowners Association. These rules, designed to maintain the community's aesthetic and property values, often have strict stipulations regarding what constitutes an abandoned property. A quick review of the HOA's governing documents revealed a detailed outline of their criteria, including requirements for property maintenance, length of absence, and communication protocols. Typically, an abandoned property is defined as one that has been unoccupied for a certain period, often accompanied by signs of neglect, overgrown lawns, peeling paint, or neglected maintenance. Yet, here I was, diligently caring for my home even during a brief personal absence that had gone unnoticed by my neighbors and the HOA. It became clear that while these guidelines aim to protect homeowners and uphold community standards, they could be misinterpreted or misapplied. The HOA's surveillance of properties might seem excessive at times, but it stems from a desire to preserve the neighborhood's charm. However, I realized such vigilance could also lead to unintended consequences, like my current predicament. Understanding these nuances was not just about defending my status as a resident. It involved grappling with the systemic challenges homeowners face when dealing with regulatory bodies that may not fully grasp individual circumstances. As I armed myself with knowledge about these guidelines, I felt more empowered to address the misunderstanding and assert my rights within this often convoluted framework of community living. Receiving the abandonment declaration was like a punch to the gut. The letter, adorned with bold typeface, seemed to mock my reality. It contained phrases that felt foreign to me: unoccupied, neglected, and failure to maintain. As I read through the document, I couldn't fathom how my home, my sanctuary, could be classified in such a manner. It struck me that the HOA had not only overlooked my presence, but had also failed to consider the complexities of individual circumstances. The letter specified that the HOA had received reports from neighbors who believed my house was vacant due to my recent absence during a family emergency. Their perception became the foundation for an official declaration, despite the fact that I had made arrangements for property upkeep during that time. The irony was palpable. I was actively living in the home they deemed abandoned, with no apparent recourse against this label. Feeling a mixture of disbelief and anger, I sought clarity on how such decisions were made within the HOA framework. It became evident that their determination was influenced by subjective observations rather than objective facts. This disparity fueled my resolve to challenge their conclusions, but it also raised questions about how often such misunderstandings occur within communities governed by HOAs. As I began to formulate a plan for addressing this declaration, I realized that simply being present in my home wouldn't be enough. I needed to gather evidence and advocate for myself amidst this bureaucratic maze. Determined to rectify the misunderstanding, I crafted a response to the HOA that was both assertive and clear. I began by acknowledging the importance of community standards and expressing my appreciation for the HOA's role in maintaining our neighborhood's aesthetics. However, I swiftly shifted gears, emphasizing that their classification of my home as abandoned was not only inaccurate, but also hurtful. In my letter, I laid out my case methodically. I highlighted my consistent property maintenance, timely payment of dues, and active engagement with neighbors, factors that clearly contradicted their claims. To support my assertions, I gathered evidence: recent utility bills showing activity at the address, photographs of the well-kept exterior, and even testimonials from neighbors who could vouch for my residency. As I penned each line, frustration faded into a sense of empowerment. This wasn't just about defending my home. It was about challenging a system that allowed subjective viewpoints to overshadow reality. I know too well how quickly rumors can spread within a close-knit community and how easily they can morph into official actions without proper verification. After finalizing the letter, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was more than an appeal. It was a statement of intent, a declaration that I would not silently accept an unjust label. With the envelope sealed and ready for mailing, I prepared myself for what came next. Navigating potential conversations with HOA representatives and possibly attending the next board meeting to present my case personally, if necessary. My journey had transformed into one of advocacy, not just for myself, but for anyone who might find themselves in a similar predicament. After mailing my detailed letter to the HOA, I knew that effective communication would be crucial in resolving this misunderstanding. With a mix of trepidation and determination, I reached out to the HOA representatives to discuss my situation directly. I decided that face-to-face conversations would be more impactful than relying solely on written correspondence. Scheduling an appointment, I prepared thoroughly for the meeting. I gathered all necessary documentation: utility bills, photographs of my property, and letters of support from neighbors, anything that could substantiate my claims. As I walked into the HOA office on the day of the meeting, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Would they dismiss my concerns or take me seriously? To my surprise, the representative I met with was receptive and willing to listen. I began by sharing my perspective and explaining how the declaration had affected me emotionally and financially. As I presented my evidence, I noticed a shift in their demeanor. They began to understand that this was not just a matter of paperwork, but a personal issue affecting someone's home. We discussed the criteria used to declare properties abandoned and explored potential miscommunications that may have led to this situation. The representative acknowledged that some aspects of the process could benefit from reevaluation, especially regarding how reports are gathered from residents. This dialogue not only opened a channel for resolution, but also highlighted a need for better communication within the community to prevent similar misunderstandings in the future. By engaging directly with HOA representatives, I felt empowered, a step closer to reclaiming my home's dignity and ensuring others wouldn't face similar challenges. As I delved deeper into resolving the abandonment declaration, I recognized the importance of understanding my legal rights and responsibilities as a homeowner in an HOA community. It became clear that while the association held significant authority over property regulations, homeowners also possessed certain protections under state laws governing residential associations. These statutes often encompass rights related to property use, maintenance, and the procedures required for enforcing rules. I researched the specific laws applicable in my state, which outlined that homeowners have the right to due process before declarations such as abandoned are made. This meant that the HOA should have conducted a thorough investigation and provided me with the opportunity to respond before labeling my home as such. Equipped with this knowledge, I felt better positioned to advocate for myself. Additionally, I reviewed my community's bylaws, which stipulated clear procedures for addressing disputes between homeowners and the HOA. These documents often require transparent communication and adequate notice before any action can be taken against a property. Understanding these regulations not only bolstered my confidence, but also reinforced the notion that I was not powerless in this situation. With newfound clarity about my legal standing, I prepared to articulate these points in future discussions with HOA representatives. This knowledge gave me leverage, transforming my interactions from mere negotiations into informed conversations where I could assert my rights effectively. It was vital to convey that while I respected the HOA's role in maintaining community standards, their decisions should be made within the framework of fairness and transparency outlined by law. As I navigated the complexities of my situation, I was acutely aware of how perceptions among neighbors could fuel misunderstandings. The declaration of my home as abandoned did not arise in a vacuum. It was influenced by reports and assumptions from those living nearby. While some neighbors had voiced their concerns out of genuine care for the community, others might have misunderstood my temporary absence during a challenging time as a sign of neglect. To gauge the sentiments within the community, I decided to reach out to a few neighbors directly. I'd seen them frequently at community events and knew they were actively involved in HOA discussions. To my relief, many were supportive and appreciated the need for clearer communications regarding such serious claims. They expressed understanding of how easily misunderstandings can occur in a tightly knit community where everyone knows each other. In our conversations, I learned that several residents had also faced scrutiny over minor absences or delays in property maintenance, and they shared stories of similar misunderstandings with the HOA. This sense of solidarity reinforced my resolve to not only advocate for myself, but also to help foster a culture of open dialogue among residents and HOA representatives. During subsequent interactions with my neighbors, I emphasized the importance of verifying concerns before reporting them, highlighting that informed communication could prevent unnecessary labels from being assigned. My attempt at fostering awareness created mutual support among neighbors, reminding us all that vigilance is important, but should be balanced with empathy and understanding for one another's circumstances. With the challenge of proving my residency ahead, I knew that simply asserting my presence wouldn't suffice. I needed concrete evidence to back my claims. I kicked off my efforts by gathering a range of documents that would demonstrate my active occupancy of the home. Recent utility bills, bank statements showing my address, and official mail from local services provided irrefutable proof that I was indeed living at the property. Next, I decided to take photographs of the house during different times of day, capturing not only its well-maintained exterior, but also elements that showcased my life within it, such as family decorations, plants thriving in the backyard, and even recent improvements I had made to the interior. These images would serve as visual evidence to counter any notion of neglect. I also reached out to neighbors who had expressed support during our previous conversations. Many were more than willing to write letters vouching for my residency, detailing their observations of me coming and going, hosting gatherings, and engaging with our community. Their testimonials would add credibility to my case and illustrate that I was an active member of the neighborhood. Additionally, I compiled all this information into a comprehensive packet that could be easily reviewed by HOA representatives. My goal was to create a narrative that not only proved my residency, but also showcased my commitment to our community's standards. By taking these concrete steps, I aimed not just to clear my name, but also to ensure that future homeowners wouldn't have to face similar challenges without proper representation. With everything ready, I felt empowered and prepared for the next conversation with the HOA. As I prepared to defend my residency, I quickly realized that documentation would play a pivotal role in my efforts. The power of well-organized evidence could transform a subjective narrative into an irrefutable fact. I meticulously gathered everything necessary to create a compelling case. Utility bills, bank statements, official correspondence, and photographs of the property all served as tangible proof of my ongoing presence. Each document I collected told a story. Utility bills highlighted my consistent usage of amenities, while bank statements showed my address clearly linked to my financial responsibilities. The photographs captured not just the physical state of my home, but also the life and love that filled it. Pictures of family gatherings, seasonal decorations, and thriving plants underscored my active engagement in maintaining a home. Furthermore, I understood that neighbor testimonials were not merely favorable opinions. They held weight as community witnesses to my residency. Each letter served as a powerful endorsement, vouching for my presence and involvement in the neighborhood. This multifaceted approach ensured that the HOA couldn't dismiss my claims without consideration. As I compiled all this evidence into a well-structured packet, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. Documentation was not just a means to an end, it was an essential part of establishing my identity within the community. It signified my commitment to transparency and accountability, reinforcing the notion that I deserved to be heard. With this comprehensive arsenal at my disposal, I felt ready to face the HOA once again, determined to reclaim my place and clarify any misconceptions surrounding my home. As I continued to gather evidence and advocate for my residency, I realized it was essential to engage with local authorities to further support my case. I began by reaching out to the town's housing authority to discuss the implications of my situation and seek guidance on how local regulations intersected with HOA rules. Understanding these nuances could be invaluable in challenging the HOA's declaration. During my conversations with the housing authority, I learned that municipalities have their own criteria for determining property abandonment, and that the HOA's criteria should align with these local standards. This revelation opened a new pathway for my argument. If the HOA's actions were deemed inconsistent with municipal regulations, it could bolster my case significantly. I also inquired about any past complaints or reported cases similar to mine within the community. Thankfully, the housing authority was cooperative and provided insights into their processes for addressing homeowner disputes. They emphasized their willingness to mediate if necessary, which gave me hope for a potential resolution outside of direct conflict with the HOA. Equipped with this information, I prepared to present not only my documentation, but also the parallels between local guidelines and the actions of the HOA. If the association failed to follow local ordinances in declaring a home abandoned, it could undermine their authority entirely. Engaging with local authorities not only expanded my understanding of the situation, but also reinforced that I wasn't alone in facing this challenge. There were systems in place intended to protect homeowners like me. With a solidified plan, I felt more confident as I moved forward in reclaiming my status within the community. As I navigated through the turmoil of having my home declared abandoned, I became acutely aware of the emotional toll this situation was taking on me. The initial shock of receiving that declaration left me feeling vulnerable, as if my identity was being questioned alongside my residency. Each day brought a new wave of anxiety and frustration, manifested not only in sleepless nights, but also in moments of self-doubt. Did my neighbors truly think I had abandoned my home? The isolation that often accompanies such disputes was palpable. While my proactive efforts to gather evidence and engage with local authorities provided a sense of control, the ongoing stress weighed heavily on my mental health. Conversations with friends and family revealed sentiments of disbelief. They could hardly comprehend how a simple report could escalate into such a profound conflict. Their support was invaluable, yet I found that the situation often drew discussions back to my distress. I also noticed subtle shifts in neighborly interactions. Whispered conversations or fleeting glances sometimes hinted at an undercurrent of judgment. It became clear that this experience had ramifications beyond paperwork, impacting my relationships within the community. As I fought to reclaim my status as a responsible homeowner, I realized the importance of discussing these emotional struggles openly, not just for myself, but for anyone else who might find themselves facing similar challenges in an HOA setting. Ultimately, this journey became a dual effort, fighting not only for my rights as a homeowner, but also for emotional resilience in confronting misunderstandings that can ripple through communities. Sharing these feelings helped forge deeper connections with allies who understood the weight of such battles. As my efforts to clarify my residency persisted, I began to contemplate the possibility of seeking mediation or legal action if the HOA remained uncooperative. The emotional strain of this ordeal had reached a tipping point, and I was determined not to let my home be unjustly labeled anymore. After consulting with neighbors and local housing authorities, it became clear that if I could not resolve this matter directly through communication, I would need to explore other avenues. I sought advice from an attorney who specialized in homeowner association disputes. They reviewed my documentation and assured me that I had a strong case based on the HOA's failure to follow proper procedures before declaring my home abandoned. This validation provided a renewed sense of determination. It was comforting to know that legal recourse was an option if necessary. The attorney also suggested that mediation could serve as a constructive first step before pursuing litigation. This approach would allow both parties to discuss their concerns in a neutral setting, possibly leading to an agreement without escalating the situation further. With this plan in mind, I decided to propose mediation to the HOA, presenting it as an opportunity for collaboration rather than conflict. As I prepared to approach the HOA with this proposal, I felt a blend of apprehension and hope. The thought of potentially resolving this issue amicably was appealing, yet I also knew that standing firm against an unjust declaration was crucial. Engaging in mediation could pave the way for not only reclaiming my status, but also ensuring fair treatment for all homeowners within our community moving forward. The unfolding situation surrounding my home and the HOA's declaration of abandonment carries broader implications for homeowners within the community. This conflict highlights a pervasive issue: the susceptibility of residents to misunderstandings and misinterpretations of HOA rules, which can lead to severe consequences for individuals and families. My experience serves as a cautionary tale, reminding fellow homeowners of the need to be vigilant and informed about both their rights and the regulations governing their communities. Many homeowners may not realize that a single complaint or erroneous assumption from neighbors can escalate into formal action from the HOA, potentially affecting property values and resident morale. The emotional toll that such actions can inflict is not merely personal. It can ripple through the community, creating an atmosphere of distrust and division among neighbors. Through my advocacy efforts, I aim to raise awareness about the importance of open communication within our community. By encouraging residents to discuss concerns directly before escalating them to the HOA, we can foster a culture that prioritizes understanding over suspicion. Mediation should be seen as a first step in resolving conflicts rather than jumping straight to punitive measures. Moreover, my journey emphasizes the importance of having supportive networks among homeowners. Engaging in collective discussions about HOA practices can empower residents to stand united against unjust claims while ensuring that policies are applied fairly. Ultimately, this situation not only impacts my own life, but also ignites a conversation about how we all navigate the complexities of living in an HOA and work together to create a fairer, more inclusive environment for everyone. As I look back on my journey through the turmoil of the HOA's abandonment declaration, I realize that this experience has not only reshaped my understanding of homeownership, but also strengthened my resolve to advocate for myself and others. The ordeal illuminated the vulnerabilities that homeowners face within an HOA system, where subjective judgments can lead to significant personal and financial repercussions. Going forward, my focus will be on fostering greater awareness among residents about their rights and responsibilities within the HOA framework. By sharing my story and encouraging open dialogue, I hope to empower fellow homeowners to voice their concerns before they escalate into disputes. Establishing a culture of communication can bridge gaps in understanding, allowing neighbors to address potential issues collaboratively rather than resorting to formal complaints. Moreover, I am committed to pushing for structured mediation processes within the HOA, aimed at resolving conflicts amicably while protecting homeowners from unjust penalties. By advocating for fair policies and transparency, we can create an environment where homeowners feel secure, valued, and understood. While my battle isn't yet over, I believe we can take meaningful steps toward building a more supportive community. By standing together against misunderstandings and promoting informed discussions, we not only safeguard our individual rights, but also enhance the overall integrity of our neighborhood. This experience has taught me that resilience is born from unity, and together we can cultivate a home where everyone is empowered and respected.